Didn't get the Moraine Lake shuttle you wanted? Maybe you missed your date, missed Alpine Start, or got a time that doesn't really work for your day. In this episode, I'm walking you through exactly what to do next and your best backup options. I'm also answering a few related Lake Louise and Moraine Lake questions that come up all the time at this time of year. Welcome back to the Banff Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Celine Brewer, a local Canmore resident living the mountain life all year long. I'm helping travelers like you plan unforgettable trips to Banff National Park. Now, first, I need to apologize about this episode being late. To say it's been a week is an understatement. I just flew back from Italy on Tuesday, April 14th, so the day before Parks Canada shuttle reservations opened. And as we landed after our 10.5-hour flight from Rome, I started to check my messages. Keep in mind, this would have been middle of the night in Rome, only to find out that some changes had been made without any announcements. Moraine Lake Road would be closed even to people with accessible parking tags. That was really a shock to me because I had been telling people all along that you could still drive up the road and didn't anticipate that coming as a change. Now, apparently Parks Canada has some accessible shuttles, but they did quietly make that change. They also increased the prices, though not significantly, and then of course the reservation page looked different than it has for the past many years. Fun times. Needless to say, reservation day the following day was a frustration for some, and I definitely got to hear about it. Thankfully, I got so many wonderful thank you messages from people who had attended my shuttle workshops and felt well prepared for that day. Now, of course, it wasn't a guarantee, but people knew what to expect, and a lot of people did get what they were hoping for. I know there's always frustration about the system itself. And then there's always the next day speculations about how getting on earlier gets you a better chance and all of that. I understand the frustration. I understand that this trip is so important to you. I can tell you that it is random. I had 5 windows open and I was 64,000 on one, 55,000 on 2 of the other ones. One spot was at 33,000 and then one was at 12,000. Okay, so that being said, what's important is what to do now if you didn't get the shuttles you wanted. I first want to start with a few questions that always come up about Moraine Lake and Lake Louise, because even if you got the shuttles that maybe aren't perfect, some of these things you'll still need to know about. And of course, I do want you to stay on until the end because I have a few more announcements. So first of all, can I still drive to Lake Louise? Yes, you can drive to Lake Louise all year long, but parking is limited and that is the issue. The parking lot is going to fill up before sunrise in peak summer months. You do also need to pay $42 to park at Lake Louise if you can get parking. Plus, parking there doesn't make it easier to get to Moraine Lake, and I'll talk more about that later. Now, can you still drive to Moraine Lake? The answer used to be yes if you had an accessible parking tag. The answer now is no. Unless you're staying at the Moraine Lake Lodge, you cannot drive to Moraine Lake, even if you have an accessible parking tag. Parks Canada will now have designated accessible shuttles. So if you have a Parks Canada shuttle, make sure you let them know when you check in at the Lake Louise Ski Resort that you need an accessible shuttle. Now, I'm seeing this question come up like more than any other year is, how can I visit Moraine Lake in April or May? And the answer is you can't. There are no shuttles that operate in April or May because the road to Moraine Lake passes through dangerous avalanche terrain and it remains snow-covered. While parts of the road may be skied in the winter, you really shouldn't be going past the point where the avalanche danger begins, and there is a sign there with the turnaround point. The only people that should be venturing past there is people who are knowledgeable about venturing into avalanche terrain, have the proper gear, and have been trained. And to be honest, even that turnaround point is still far from the lake and doesn't get you any views of Moraine Lake. The same applies in May, with one very small exception. In very, very late May, when it is safe, the road is usually cleared of snow a couple of days before shuttles will start driving on it. And those couple of days, it may be possible to bike up. Now, this is only an option in those last few days of May. And to be honest, even then, the lake is often still frozen or partly frozen and has very low water levels. Now, what about Lake Louise in April or May? Lake Louise is different. You can still drive to Lake Louise in April and May. It's often one of the easier times to visit it, especially compared to summer, because that summer rush hasn't fully kicked in yet. Parks Canada shuttles only start on May 15th to Lake Louise. And you can also reserve Rome Transit Route 8X from Banff to Lake Louise if you don't want to drive. And that paid parking I talked about also doesn't come in effect until May 15th. Which leads me into the other question I do get asked all the time, because you can still drive to Lake Louise, is if I park at Lake Louise, can I just hop on the lake connector to Moraine Lake? For example, you got a shuttle to Moraine Lake only in the afternoon, so you're hoping that this is a way around it. Now, unfortunately, the answer is no. If you booked a Parks Canada shuttle, your trip has to begin at the Lake Louise Park and Ride at the Lake Louise Ski Resort. You must check in there during your departure window, and you'll get another slip, another ticket that you need to keep with you, as it's the ticket for the lake connector and your return shuttle. So people who park at the Lake Louise Lakeshore lot are not allowed to use the lake connector shuttle from there. Obvious exception is the Alpine Start shuttle. Completely different conversation. That one departs from the Lake Louise Lakeshore at 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. So no, parking at Lake Louise does not solve the problem. And just along that topic as well, that the question I see coming up is whether or not you need a separate pass for Moraine Lake or Lake Louise. You don't. There's no separate passes for these lakes. Yes, you need a national park pass, either annual or daily, to visit the entire park, but not something separate for these lakes. Of course, remember that entry into the national parks is free from June 19th to September 7th. But your Parks Canada shuttle is also a separate cost from that, so you do still have to pay for that shuttle. Okay, so that was just a few questions I wanted to get cleared up because I get asked them all the time. So let's talk about shuttle options. Maybe you got a terrible time. Maybe you missed your date completely. Maybe you wanted Alpine Start and it was gone. Maybe you got something, but now you're not even sure how to make it work. If any of those are you, the first thing I want to say is do not panic. Not getting the exact Parks Canada shuttle you wanted does not mean that your Moraine Lake and Lake Louise day is completely ruined. There are going to be options. Yes, they're likely going to cost you more money, or you may need to try to book something else, or you need to make some adjustments, but it's all going to be okay. There are still ways to make this work, and I'm going to walk you through exactly what to think about to do next, okay? So what do you do if you didn't get the shuttle you wanted? Option 1 is you can keep the booking you got and just adjust your day. This is the first thing I want people to think about before they throw away the shuttle they managed to get. A lot of people get so focused on that one perfect departure time, and they forget the bigger goal, which is just having a great day at the lakes and seeing them. If you got a shuttle, even if it wasn't your ideal one, step back, ask yourself, can I move something around that day? Can I move the hike I was going to do to later? Can I swap out which lake I do first? And, is there ways that I can change this day to make that shuttle work? For example, if you got a, 3 p.m. shuttle, you absolutely can still visit Moraine Lake. You can probably visit both lakes still in that time because the last return shuttle is at 7:30. Now, obviously, if you're going to do a hike, that's probably not going to work to have time to hike and see both lakes. But it's something to consider. Sometimes the best move is, just to make a good option work. The second option to consider is try again 48 hours ahead. This is another option to consider. Parks Canada has only released 40% of the tickets. The remaining 60% of shuttle seats are released at 8 a.m. Mountain Time 2 days before the departure, and that is throughout the season. So if you've missed out entirely, or you got a time that you hate, you still have another chance. Now, yes, these go quickly as well, but if your original booking isn't ideal, or you never got one, you can set a reminder and try again at that 48-hour time frame. Especially if you're really working within a budget and some of the commercial shuttle operators aren't going to work for you. But I also recognize that you might not want to worry about this while you're on your holiday. This is probably a better option, I would think, for people who are just trying to optimize, trying to get something better if they can, or somebody who, is really working with a strict budget. Yes, obviously it will work for anybody, but I have seen people complain that they do go quickly. So that is just something to keep in mind. A third option, Rome Transit. I've gotten a few responses from people telling me that Rome Transit isn't going to work because it doesn't go to Moraine Lake. So this is really important to understand. If you want both lakes, you need the Rome Reservable Superpass. The Rome Reservable Superpass includes access to the Parks Canada Lake Connector shuttles. So you would take Rome Transit Route 8X from Banff to Lake Louise Lakeshore. So make note of what I said there. This leaves from the town of Banff, not the Lake Louise Ski Resort. But you would have a reserved time that you get on the bus. With the Reservable Superpass, you would use the Parks Canada Lake Connector to go to Moraine Lake. That one stays the same. It's first come, first serve, so you just go get in line. And when you're done there, you'd return to Lake Louise using that lake connector again, and then go back to Banff at, again, your reserved time on Rome Route 8X. So this is a way that you could easily visit both lakes and have time for hiking. And you get to choose the time you get on the bus and the time you return to Banff. So this really allows you to plan that day without having to wait in line for a return shuttle because you already have your booked time. And the reservation dates for that are still to come. So reservations open for June dates. So if you're traveling in June, they open on April 23rd at 9 a.m. If you're traveling in July, May 25th is the day you want to make the reservations. If you're traveling in August, June 22nd is the day that you'll make those reservations. And then it's on July 27th for September and October dates. So again, if you're traveling in June, April 23rd, this is coming up. Put that in your calendar, 9 a.m. Mountain Time. If you're not traveling till July, you have until May to figure that out. And the fourth option, book a commercial shuttle. For a lot of people, this is just the easiest answer. Yes, it costs more. I understand that. But it can also save a lot of frustration. You get to avoid lineups. You book the shuttle times that you want. So if you're already annoyed and stressed and trying to force the Parks Canada booking that doesn't fit your day, it might be the point where it just makes sense to step back and book one of these commercial shuttle operators. You're still going to have a wonderful day, but yes, it's just going to cost more money. I understand that's not for everybody. And I do need you to make sure you read the details carefully of what shuttle you're booking, because they are not all the same. Some are better for sightseeing, where you get an hour and a half to 2 hours at each lake. If that doesn't fit the time that you want at the lakes, then you need to find one that will allow extended time for hiking. Some go for sunrise and then give you time at Lake Louise after. Some will give you more time at the lakes than others. Some leave from Banff, some leave from Canmore, some leave from Lake Louise. So you really just need to know which ones make sense for your trip. And honestly, at this point, they're not going to be booked up. So find the one that matches the day you want. Some of the ones that I recommend are, if you're going from Canmore or Banff, Via Moraine is great for sunrise or a daytime shuttle. Canmore Travel is excellent for daytime or even a sunset. Explore Banff Tours also operates out of Canmore or Banff. If you're looking for a guided tour, Rad Ventures operates out of Banff. If you want to leave from Lake Louise Village, Moraine Lake Bus Company or Fairview Limo, both of those are great for sunrise or daytime, or if you want just one shuttle to Lake Louise and then Moraine Lake on a different day. Fairview Limo is also great if you're traveling with a large dog. They're the only shuttle that allows large dogs. Most of the other ones will allow small dogs in a carrier on your lap. And again, reservations can be made at any time. Now, these aren't the only commercial shuttle operators either. There are a ton of great options. I'm going to link to my Getting to Moraine Lake post so you can see how many great options there are and find the best one for your trip. There are also options like the Hop On Banff bus. If you have limited time and you want to visit more places in the same day, like Johnston Canyon and Lake Louise Gondola, it's a great option. Or the Moraine Lake Big Bus if you need an accessible shuttle, or the idea of the open top shuttle appeals to you, that's also another option. So I'll leave links to all of those in the show notes. And now the final one I want to talk about is if you missed that Alpine Start. So the Alpine Start is the one that leaves either at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. from the Lake Louise Lakeshore, and it goes to Moraine Lake for sunrise. That's what people use it for. So yes, the price of that Alpine Start for sunrise compared to some of the other sunrise shuttles is going to be a big step up for you. Now, let's talk about sunrise at Moraine Lake. Yes, it can be absolutely amazing, and how great if you can get there for only $12. But it can also be really cold, or, maybe it's cloudy that day, or, you aren't thinking about how early you actually need to get up. And it's going to impact the rest of your day and all of the things you want to do. So maybe just reconsider if that is truly what you want to do. Now, I'm not trying to dissuade you from going to see sunrise at Moraine Lake, but, it's not going to make or break your trip unless it was like the thing you absolutely had to do. Then you still have some options. You can try again 48 hours ahead, like we talked about with the Parks Canada one, or you can just book that commercial sunrise shuttle. There's some that are going to have blankets and coffee for you, and they're going to get you there at the perfect amount of time before sunrise. Plus, the shuttle is sitting there for when you're done if you want to go back to the shuttle. So one of those commercial sunrise shuttles can be really wonderful and, be more of an experience than just hopping on a bus there. You can also consider whether you want to catch a sunrise at a lake that you can actually drive to if you still really want to see a mountain sunrise. All right, I hope that helps you figure out what your next steps are if you didn't get the exact shuttle that you wanted. Now, before I wrap up, I just wanted to share a few quick updates on my side. First is just a reminder that to celebrate the 1 year of the Banff Travel Podcast, I'm doing that giveaway. So head to banfftravelplanning.com/podcast, click the button that says enter giveaway, and share what you love about the podcast or give me some feedback, things that you would like to see, and ask me a Banff trip planning question that you would love for me to personally answer. I'm giving away 3 30-minute Banff travel consultations with me. Second, I have something new for all of you who have purchased either a workshop, a Banff travel guide, or an itinerary from me. I have now added a live Q&A for anybody who's made a purchase from me. I wanted to create a better way to support people and answer all of those questions and make that support more useful without trying to manage everything through endless emails and direct messages. This is a way that I can dedicate time to supporting you who have supported me in the purchases that you've made and trusted me with parts of your trip. And third, I've already received some really, really helpful feedback from you guys. So I'm going to work on making 3 changes. I'm going to start including the top 3 takeaways from every episode. And I'm going to work on getting full transcripts published on my site so you can take less notes. And I'm also going to set up an email that you can subscribe to that will be specific to the podcast with those top 3 takeaways. So it'll be straight in your inbox. You can decide if you want to listen to that episode or not. So as promised, here are the top 3 takeaways from this episode. 1, missing your ideal Moraine Lake shuttle doesn't mean your plan is ruined. You still have options, including making your current booking work, trying again 48 hours in advance, using the Roam Reservable Superpass, or booking a commercial shuttle operator. Second, parking at Lake Louise Lakeshore does not mean you can use the regular lake connector. From there, if you booked a Parks Canada shuttle, you still have to begin at the park and ride and check in there first. And the same with Roam, your trip has to originate in Banff. I know it would be nice to find these little workarounds, but that's just the way it operates. And then number 3, the best backup option is going to depend on the kind of day you actually want, whether it's sunrise, hiking, sightseeing, or just less stress. And, visiting both lakes. So those can all lead to different transportation choices. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Banff Travel Podcast. If you got value from this episode, do me a favor and make sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss the next one. It's free, it helps the show, it keeps you in the loop. Don't forget to enter the giveaway at banfftravelplanning.com/podcast. And until next time, happy trip planning, and I'll see you out on the trails.